Brogan.
Yeah, what's up,
Has
man?
anyone pointed out at the start of Elden Ring a guy tells you that you don't have a maiden? I think that would be very funny to translate to modern vernacular. Has anyone done this on Twitter.com, perhaps with a relevant Megamind meme that is going around?
I don't know how to break this to you, Murph, but yeah, they did. They already beat you to it.
What? But I'm on the cutting edge of comedy. I'll post it
In
anyway.
fact, I think I'm gonna be ahead of everybody and instead do the Megamind meme, but go no memes, no
Oh.
memes, and then there you go. Yeah, that's it.
Welcome to the Elden Ring cast.
Is memes the only thing you got for Elden Ring? Was that your only thought?
I could say things about Elden Ring. I can I can say things about Elden Ring with the best of them.
Okay, well then do it. Do so.
Oh, so much pressure. I'm turning off the podcast. I'm leaving. Yeah. I like Elden Ring. I think I still prefer Bloodborne, but I like it more than Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think man, it's a real big game, isn't it? It just keeps going. It's like the Energizer Bunny.
Okay, did you ever play Dark Souls 2?
No.
Okay, all right. That the okay, so I guess the thing I would say about design direction is that I think Bloodborne and Sekiro went for we're gonna make it short and sweet,
Mhm.
and every little morsel is a dedicated combat thing.
Mhm.
And then like Dark Souls 3 is sort of like it wants to be Bloodborne, but it knows deep down it's a Dark Souls.
Yes.
And Dark Souls 2 was like taking Dark Souls 1 but making it into like a real JRPG with length and quantity.
Length and
And
girth.
Dark Souls 2 is like it's got the most content out of the three Souls games. But that being said, Elden Ring blows all of that out of the water and goes for the Dark Souls 2 approach of let's just fucking have everything in the game.
Yeah.
So much content.
It does feel a lot of it's a little bit of everything all of the time. Uh
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think when you say you prefer Bloodborne or something, like, I don't. But that being said, I completely understand why someone would. I don't think Elden Ring is the goat of all time for everybody. No.
no, I mean I like it, but it's just like I got to the end of the Leyendell capital, and then I was like, oh wait, this is the halfway point. It seems,
Yeah.
and I was
Yeah,
like,
it's still
and then
going.
I looked at my playtime, which was 40 some hours, and I was like, I don't think I'm ever gonna play this one again, or at least not
Oh,
immediately. And yeah, there's sort of the Breath of the Wild thing of you can, you don't have to do all the content. You can just make a beeline.
yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not good enough to just make a beeline. I only got
Yeah.
good enough, like, my third playthrough of Bloodborne. I was good enough to bum rush Canehurst Castle and beat Martyr Logarius at level 25.
There you go. All right. Now you're trying to break out the cred, make me look bad. No, I'm
Yeah.
just kidding.
Well, you're
No,
very
but
low level, uh, in
I don't
contrast to
level a
other
lot in these
people.
games. I don't think there's yeah, I don't see a lot. I mean, obviously there's reasons to level, but I don't really like. I don't play the game like that. I don't know.
Hmm. You're more like the lore hound. You're just looking, trying to Pepe
No,
Sylvia the whole thing.
Murph. I'm gonna be real. I have no idea what's going on in the
Why
game
do they call him the loathsome dung eater?
because I don't know. I think people aren't a fan of his dietary habits.
Is it because he
One would
wears a big
assume.
hat?
I like the Dung Eater. The Dung Eater is my second favorite NPC in the game. Actually,
Really,
like in terms of like a real NPC, he's my favorite.
really.
Yes.
You you like the guy who says I'm gonna defile your corpse as a form of saying goodbye?
All right. I guess this is really gonna actually become a Souls cast now. Um, my favorite like things in the games are like the corrupted, filthy. I'm an invader, like invader covenants,
Okay.
etc., etc. So like, I'm not like a holy paladin type guy. I'm much more like a I will wear this dung thing and I will defile your corpse. And yeah, it's good. It's all good stuff to me.
Boy, I guess we know who you're turning to into in the apocalypse.
Yeah,
Um,
you know what it is.
I do like most of the NPCs in this. Actually, I think this is uh probably my favorite. I don't know, world. I guess from Soft.
I think that's one of the nicest things about it is like with that open space and content, it allows it to feel like a real living, breathing world for sure.
Yes, and that was always my problem with Dark Souls 1. Um
Yeah.
I know what I'm about to say you're going to counter with that's the intent, but my problem with Dark Souls
Okay.
1 was always that it felt dead. And I mean that as in like
Yeah.
sterile, barren. It didn't feel like anything had ever lived in there. It felt like I was walking on a model.
Yeah, I can see that. It feels empty, but it also feels there's no other way to say it other than it's intentionally empty.
Well, I
Yeah.
think it's also a technical limitation.
Yeah.
Like, when you look at a very similar environment in like Elden Ring, and there the enemies are like making little noises as you hit them, or they're sort of gangling around. There's a lot of animation
Yeah.
charm to
There's a
them.
liveliness to them that's otherwise not present.
Yeah, whereas in Dark Souls 1, everything's real stiff. And that's probably just from like the time it came out, and also from Soft not being one of the biggest names in the gaming industry.
Yeah, I mean, like in terms of stiffness or deadness, like if that's how you feel about it, I would not tell you to play like the Kingsfield games
Mm,
because that's all space and like two guys in a corner. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I remember you telling me once it's like it doesn't feel like it's a world worth fighting for,
yeah.
and it feels empty, it feels lifeless. I think those things are you're meant to feel that, and then in terms of like I think the NPCs in like Dark Souls 1 they are more calculated than in than in Elden Ring where it's like they sort of I don't think there is anybody in Elden Ring that rivals Solaire in terms of iconography or in terms of like what it could possibly mean for a player's disposition.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I
no,
would
I
say
see that.
and I would say Solaire would be the reason to keep playing. You know what I mean? Like Solaire is the bright spot. Dark
Yeah.
Souls is a lot of darkness with like a little bit of a bright spot to keep going. Whereas Elden Ring is much more of just a yeah, you're in a lived in world. Um the other thing in terms of NPCs is I think this is hitting the point now where I'm annoyed at where
Mm-hmm.
at losing NPCs and not knowing where their quest lines are.
Oh,
I was afraid of it going in, and I'm now like,
are
it's a
are
problem.
you saying you would like a quest log
Yes,
in
I would.
a
Yes.
FromSoft game?
Actually, I
Oh.
said it once to another guy. The thing that I really need, I
Mm-hmm.
don't need a quest log. What I would like is a log that has NPC interactions where I last met them and the recorded dialogue,
Yes.
which I don't think is offensive at all.
No, I don't think that's asking a lot. I kind of like dreamed up a concept where at like a site of grace you could replay like memories of a conversation or something.
Yeah, see, I mean, I think that would be a more elegant or stylish way to do what I would want, which is just a fucking Excel spreadsheet. But that being said, it's just like something to where I don't have to like guess or project what's going on. Because I will say, when the NPCs are on, like right in front of you, they do signpost. They do say what they want you to do or where they're going or whatever. And then it's like,
Sometimes.
okay, it's kind of it's okay to figure out or like I will say in terms of lore I'm not going to spiel on it but I will say this game's more explicit about what's going on
Oh yeah.
like
I like that.
I think it's very important that I think the problem with Dark Souls is you need like 10 wiki articles and then like Vati Vidya to
Mhm.
explain to the basic person what's going on. And I do think that's a failing. I legit do think like, hey,
Yeah.
if you need to have someone give you a cliff notes on the thing you spent 80 hours doing, there's a problem.
I was going to say that's, that's the reason why kids don't like reading Moby Dick in high school. It's because
Yeah.
they need to be told that it's great. They can't see it for themselves, you know?
Yeah. And I think Elden Ring, it still has the depth of the other titles, but then it allows that barrier of entry comes down. It's a lot more accessible, even in terms of gameplay. I think in terms of gameplay, it goes so much. I'm so shocked reading the discourse on Twitter
Hmm.
about like, oh, what FromSoft can or can't do in terms of appealing to new players. They do so much every game, Murph. The stakes of America alone,
Oh my god, yes.
that alone is just proof that FromSoft is aware of what players do and don't like and what can be hostile to new players.
Yeah, if From ever dials it back and I have to do another boss run like going to Seath the Scaleless, uh
Oh
we're
man.
going to have a problem.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen a lot of people saying that this is the most accessible FromSoft game, and I don't know, maybe this is my favoritism showing, but I always felt Bloodborne was exceedingly accessible. Because you only, like, Elden Ring sort of bombards you with all these stats and systems that are just a little bit. You need to consult a wiki to know how to play optimally, whereas Bloodborne had always felt like playing optimally was just entirely your skill. I don't know how to phrase this exactly. Bloodborne feels very straightforward to me. I guess I should say
I would
that.
agree with that. Look, I think there's multiple ways to answer that question. I would say before Elden Ring, I would tell if someone asked me what I think a random person's favorite game would be if they played FromSoft games, I would guess Bloodborne. Like if I just picked up a random guy on the street,
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, your game would probably be Bloodborne. That would probably be the one you could access the most, and you would understand viscerally what the appeal of the design philosophy is.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think Elden Ring has a different approach regarding what can be accessible. Yes, Bloodborne exceeds in simplicity and is much more like straightforward in terms of aesthetic and appeal, where it's like, dude, you just gotta look at the box art and you know
Yeah.
exactly what you're getting, and you know, like, and even the twists and turns, like all of it just hits right where even if you don't understand what's going on in that, like in Dark Souls, you still effectively understand what's going on. Like you understand that, you're beyond your element.
Yeah, Bloodborne relies on a lot of shorthand of the genre, whereas if you've ever been vaguely exposed to any sort of gothic or Lovecraftian story, you get the gist. Like when I was playing Bloodborne, a huge Souls friend of mine asked, like, so what have you figured out in terms of the plot? And I was like, it's pretty straightforward. This is like a dime novel gothic horror. Like all the clues are there.
Yeah, yeah, the complexities in the details, but like that being said, the broad overarching, like, oh, how am I supposed to feel in these moments, or what am
Mm-hmm.
I supposed to be thinking about? Those things are very explicit and signposted for the
Yeah.
player. Whereas like Elden Ring, similar thing. I think your thing about the complexity regarding RPG stuff is more tied to number one, the built-in fantasy aspects versus gothic aspects, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh yeah, it's a fantasy world written by George R. Martin. I don't, you know what I mean? Like that will be naturally more
Yeah.
complex. Or like in terms of RPG, yes, there's so much quantity to it. There's a lot more things regarding that stuff. I don't necessarily think that's player hostile,
Yeah.
especially in terms of this game. We could talk more about like earlier Souls games where I think it could be player hostile, but this one largely still wants to make sure you know what's going, like you know how to tackle things. And I
Mm-hmm.
think in terms of like JRPG fans or open world fans, this may be more initially appealing than Bloodborne.
Yeah. I think my biggest, well, not my biggest, one that's been on my mind a lot with FromSoft Design that I think they haven't really addressed is that they have a lot of different damage types in this game, and I don't really know when any of them are applicable. You know what I'm saying?
What do you mean by applicable? Like when is it appropriate to Pokemon the villain?
I guess, yeah. I guess that's it. Like, I can read on Twitter.com that this, or the Wikipedia, that this boss is weak to strike damage, but that doesn't mean I'm going to go out and start investing in a strike weapon for
No,
20,
no.
20 points more
This is
damage.
this
Or,
is a standard Souls problem. They've always been like this, by the way.
yeah.
But that being said, no, you're not meant to just maybe you are in Elden Ring with the quantity, but I doubt it. You're not meant to just pick up a weapon and be like, oh, this is Pokemon. This is the water Pokemon. I need to use
Yeah,
my electric attack. Like, no, it's much more like built for builds. This is meant for build variety. Because I would say, like, my biggest criticisms of like Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3 is they're very limited in variety and yeah, they're limited in build variety.
and the only time I'm switching weapons is to be more immune to Scarlet Rot and the Lake of Rot. It's not like I'm looking at a boss and being like, he's dealing crush damage. Better switch to my crush resistant armor. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
it
none of
a
that.
system like that, it would feel like you'd want to be building an arsenal and switching on the fly, but that's never how players have ever played from soft games. You pick your build and then you adjust as you find things, not as you encounter enemies, if that makes sense.
Again, there's been bosses resistant or otherwise. I don't think this is a problem with Elden Ring. Or if it is a problem with Elden Ring, it's been a problem
Yeah.
for over a decade. Let's just say
No,
that.
no, I think it's a problem with FromSoft's designs. I think you could really just remove all those different damage types and just have a damage stat, and I don't really think I would play the game all that differently.
Murph. Oh no.
Oh no, am I
Oh
game
no.
journalisting
You've got
now?
a bad take. I
Oh
don't know
no.
what to tell you, man.
Oh dear.
Okay, all right. Here's what I'll say. I don't want that. No.
Okay.
I prefer the RPG aspects of the title, and I don't care necessarily if I need to adjust my playstyle for a specific boss. I'm not going to necessarily do that. In fact, I think okay, let's put it this way. You're meant to fight bosses differently based on your build. It's not so much that I need to switch to a blunt instrument to attack the blunt instrument boss. It's more like, oh, I've got a spell thing. Now I have to completely have a different playstyle for this boss.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the biggest problems with later from soft titles is that they did have a more focused boss selection where they want, and it's why Sekiro is very limited in your combat pool.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, we can art like perfectly craft a singular experience, and that's what I think you want. Whereas I want 10 different ways to solve the boss problem, and if one is not efficient because there's another boss down the road that was more efficient for my build, I think that's perfectly fine, and that was intended.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't think I really want the Sekiro approach. I guess dialing back, I wanted the Bloodborne approach where there's only really 15 weapons in the game,
Yeah.
and then there's no encumbrance limit, so you can equip whatever armor you want.
I mean, I think Bloodborne is like a satisfactory like compromise. I still think Bloodborne's too lacking for me. I don't like Bloodborne that much.
Okay.
But that being said, like I'm not going to again, I think it's a really good experience. And that being said, it does have strength variety. It does have quality variety. It does have dexterity. It has arcane, and it even has blood tinge. And I like blood tinge a lot.
Yeah.
Blood tinge is a sick build.
My last build was Blood Tinge.
Okay, here's another way to say I don't like the blood gems in Bloodborne. The blood gems are like super bad, and it's like is the main reason for depth beyond just what you put your stats into. It's like based on heavy RNG on your chalice dungeons or locations, and then that's really it. That's all you got.
I like the blood gems. I prefer the blood gems to how Dark Souls 1 did weapon crafting, where I had no idea what was going on. Or I guess
I
weapon
guess
upgrading, like I would tab over the different like weapon types, like, oh, you can make your weapon a heavy weapon, but it looks like I'm dealing less damage, so why would I pick that?
let's move on from this
Okay.
topic. We can keep talking about Elden Ring, but I don't want to go. I don't want to get mired in stat conversations.
Sure. So how about the open world end of it? Do you like Elden Ring being an open world?
Yes, 100%. And it goes into what you just said, where you complained about approaching a boss and being like, "Well, I don't think this was intended for me, or at least intended for me at this level."
Yeah.
Whereas there's probably something for you that the developers intended somewhere else in the game. So you can go get that, come back to this boss, and then deal with it with your build.
Yeah, I suppose now that I'm thinking about it, they do offer a pretty easy to access respec option
Yes.
pretty early into the game. So I guess that's sort of how you switch things up should you choose to. Um, like last podcast, or really the first podcast, I was talking about Sekiro, how if when you reached a wall in that game, all you could really do is get good because that's how Sekiro was designed. With this, if you hit a like hard boss too early, you can just do a 360 and walk away.
I think in terms of design, I don't want to say it's the exact opposite or polar opposite, but in for me this is the antithesis of Sekiro.
Yeah.
For me personally.
No, I think this is. And I don't really like lumping Sekiro in with the other Souls born games because
I agree.
it's really not.
I think it's much more comparable to a Ninja Gaiden
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and here's the thing is if you want, like, if someone wanted to argue against me for that, I think if you measured Sekiro in terms of a Souls game, it fails.
Mhm.
Like, I don't want to rank it on those terms. I want to rank it on how it deals with combat encounters and polish.
Yeah.
Whereas, Elden Ring went for a different thing where it's less polished, but it goes for
More
different content and
yeah.
stuff.
And I like how Elden Ring you can break it very easily. I like games like that. Like
Yeah.
I don't mind seeing that a boss I struggled on a high intelligence player, and I mean that in terms of the stat, not
No,
wa-
you're big brain, Riff. Go
walked
ahead.
into the boss arena and just did the Kamehameha at it and won. I don't mind
Yeah.
seeing that because I'm like, oh, it's cool that the devs allow that to happen. Because I think,
And to me, the player earns that.
yeah,
The player does earn that by figuring out what that is and what that does and how to use the systems together. It's what you said earlier, is like there's so many systems, you're overwhelmed to start. That is its own challenge, is to
hmm
figure out how the game works. And then breaking it is the final test.
yeah. And then there are some bosses that I think demand to be broken. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of their approach to boss design in this, where every boss feels like it has to be able to do everything.
Well, I would say depend. Oh my god. Okay, so there's so many bosses
There
in
are
this.
so many
There's so
bosses.
many there's so many bosses. I think it craves nuance to what you just said.
Mm,
Number one, I would say the mini bosses don't count to what you're saying.
no.
I think the mini bosses are much more just like they took a special enemy, put them in the room of
The
of a small
smallest room
dungeon,
imaginable.
and that's totally fine for me. I enjoy those
Sometimes
fights.
they put three of them in a room.
Do you want to rant about that, or are you good?
No, no, I'm just overly bitter to losing to the watchdog and his four gank goblins 500 times and then abandoning that character.
Did you have a problem? Like, did you have a bigger problem with Capra Demon?
So I skipped Capra Demon.
You did?
Yeah,
Why?
I had the key.
Why would you start with the key on your first playthrough?
I didn't know it would let me skip most of the game or most of the early game.
It said it opens doors otherwise couldn't be open.
Yeah, I thought it was like a Jill lockpick thing.
Whatever. Okay. Anyways, that being said, in terms of major bosses like Margot or whatever,
hmm
yeah, I think they go overboard on some of it. I like the demigod bosses because I get the feeling a lot of those were gimmicky.
I like
I,
the
I like gimmick bosses. My favorite bosses in Souls games have been Demon Souls. Demon Souls has been my favorite roster of bosses, and that is because it is more based on problem solving and your knowledge of the game or your own wits about you versus mashing the dodge button when you've memorized the boss's animation.
Yeah, I can buy that. I think like my favorite boss in the game so far is probably Renala. And
Yeah.
that's a very easy boss. I beat it second attempt, but I like the spectacle of it. And
Yes.
the tone of it. And then contrast that with a boss like Radon, who maybe I
Yeah.
tackled when I was a bit too low level. Um but that's a very spectacle focused boss as well. The problem is it's so difficult that the 50th time the spectacle has worn off and it just makes the boss like that much more, I don't know, drawn out.
No, no, I get it. I like Radon too. To be honest, Radon reminds me of a Dark Souls 2 boss, so I didn't mind. If
Okay.
it reminded me of Dark Souls 2, I didn't care about it. Or at least it made me aware that it was an intentional design decision and they were trying to explore a concept or polish it out. Same thing with those chariots in the mini dungeons. I never minded them
I
at
don't
all
mind the
because I had
chariots.
already played. What?
I don't mind the chariots.
Yeah, I think they're just part of the levels and stuff. And I I think maybe they shouldn't be one hit kill upon touching. But that being
Yeah.
said, their purpose is like very clear.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. No, I don't mind that at all. Not one lick. Um, could I?
But Radon is like the overboard for you.
Uh, yeah. Mostly because I think it's mostly the run up to him
Sure.
is annoying.
Yeah.
I think if it was a shorter run up to him, or his arrows didn't have such great tracking, then
Yeah.
it would be better for me.
Did you not use this stuff as
I
cover?
did use the stuff as cover, but even doing that, it still takes like, half a minute just to get up where he stops shooting arrows. And the entire time, if you like, mistime something once, there goes half your health bar. So that's one less flask you have for actually fighting him.
I think that's my one bit my one actual problem if I could tweak the bosses is I think they do too much damage.
Yeah,
Maybe it's just a leveling thing because I was under leveled. But that being said, like I just straight up think they do too much
they
damage.
really want you to level vitality in this. Like I'm at
Yes,
I'm at
yeah,
35 vitality, level 104. I went back to a dungeon I had missed. I think where was that? Where in the Lake Linuria or whatever it is.
sure.
And the dungeon boss of that hit me once and took out a third of my health bar.
Yes, and it's so punishing, but it's like punishing in a way that's like, what are we doing here? You
Yeah.
know,
No, I don't. This game will probably be patched to adjust a lot of these first
for something
impressions.
at least, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. But the one thing I was going to say regarding Radon, and I wanted to pivot to a more broad concept, was did you use Torrent very much? I like Torrent. I think one of the best things about this game is the mobility, the
Mm-hmm.
jump button, and the steed, the mount.
Yeah, I
I
like
think all of that's
I
awesome.
like Torrent. Torrent's a good boy. Uh, I like. Yeah, no, actually, I didn't use Torrent that much in the Radon run up because Torrent cannot strafe faster than his arrows track.
No, you need to be able to dodge the purple arrows. But that being said, once he does the shower, you
Mm-hmm.
can use torrent for the shower, and more importantly, I use torrent to whack Radon. I would
You
the
did
way
hit
I
and run.
fought Radon, yeah, I would hit and run. That's how I
Yeah,
did him.
I tried that, but it seems like I know this is the intent, but when you get knocked off Torrent, it's a lot of like mashing the
It's
dodge
punishing.
button, waiting
Yeah.
for your guy to stop groaning and get up. Like, yeah, in a lot of FromSoft games and games in general, I'm not fond of enemies that have long grab attacks.
I think they're funny. I'm pro grab
They're
attack.
funny the first time.
Nah, they're funny every time, man.
Okay.
I love them.
Do you also put down finger butthole messages?
Yes. Yes. Big chest ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh,
Look, I'm a simple man,
I
Murph.
put down a message that's been healing me through some tough times.
That's good. That keeps you going.
That keeps me
What?
going. I put down in the mimic tier boss. I put down, could this be lover?
Yeah. Yeah. What are you hoping for the DLC?
I don't know if this game needs DLC.
I think at the very least, according to Lance McDonald, apparently there's a PvP arena.
Okay, I could see that.
Yeah, I think stuff like that would be good, or just general like content additions. I don't necessarily need another map. That's the
I
thing. Is like
think
I don't need like an Artorias in the Abyss up
you know
in
what they
this.
could do is they could do the Far Cry thing where they just reuse the map, but maybe they change like what time period it's set in. Doesn't Dark Souls do something like that, where you go
Um,
into the memories of a giant or something?
that's not DLC. That's just
Though
in
it's just
on
in the
the game.
game. I could see them
That's
doing
just in the
something
game.
like that.
But that being said, yeah. Well, you do go to other lands or whatever. Anyways, you made me lose it because you made me think about Dark Souls 2, my beloved,
I'm sorry.
my sweet darling. No, honestly, the best DLC for me in terms of FromSoft games, is probably Bloodborne. The Bloodborne was the The problem with these games a lot of times is content. Bloodborne's biggest problem is the base game vanilla Bloodborne kind of sucks in content.
I would agree with that. Without old hunters, I couldn't imagine the game. Yeah.
Yeah. And this game is like the only things that I would really want are what you just said, or the thing I remembered just now was world states. The one thing I talked to somebody about is interactivity with the world. And one of the reasons why I probably still like Breath of the Wild better, or if not in its own way, is because Breath of the Wild encourages you to engage with the mechanics of like the physics of the living breathing
Yeah.
world, aka the elements, and how the world changes and how you have to adapt to the changes. Like if it rains in Breath of the Wild, you can't climb a mountain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like stuff like that is not in Elden Ring. And I'm not necessarily blaming them. I think they certainly worked for their game. But
Yeah.
that being said, is you feel it, and DLC could supplement that.
I don't know. So you want it to be more, you want the DLC to, like, I don't know, adjust the base game's mechanics, or do you want,
Yes,
okay.
not necessarily like give them like climbing mechanics. Or
Yeah,
anything,
no, I'm
but
not
no,
saying,
but I mean
not
it's
like a
like change in
Sims
world
expansion.
states. Change in world states would be the biggest one, or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I could see that. I definitely don't need the game to be more because it's enough, or it might actually be too much. The comparison I'm gonna make is I started watching The Sopranos for the first time recently, and I
Sure.
finished I finished season one. And I was like, man, this is a real good show. How much is left? And I saw that there's like 6.5 more seasons, and I was like,
It's a heavy time investment, but then the other thing is like how many RPGs do you play, Murph? In terms of JRPGs?
JRPGs, not really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing is like when you say 40 hours is a heavy time investment, it's like not for some people I know. Some people I know are very
Yeah.
comfortable devoting 200 hours to
I
something.
did put in 100 hours into Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but mostly that was I was bound by honor for that.
Do you think your 100 hours of Assassin's Creed Odyssey would be more fulfilling than 100 hours of Elden Ring?
I mean, yes, on a yeah, like uncritically yes. Actually, can I speak to the gamers for a moment? Can I just I'm seeing a lot of people, sometimes rightfully dunking on Ubisoft. Especially in context of this game, I'm seeing a lot of like if Ubisoft made Elden Ring images where it's got like a big ass arrow pointing you where to go and a mini map and quest identifiers and god damn it, you idiots are making me defend the sex abuse company. I
No,
just
I think people are really toxic and entitled when it comes, and like if no one can criticize a FromSoft game. That
yeah.
was the one thing I was worried about. I part of me was like, I knew Elden Ring was going to be good, but then like the hero worship of
Mhm.
FromSoft as a company and like their design principles is very scary because then
Yeah.
it's like there's no conversation to be had.
Yeah, it's just the last 3 Assassin's Creed games, Valhalla, Odyssey, Origins, all featured very adjustable difficulty, not just for the combat, but for the UI and the quests themselves. Um, Odyssey flat out recommends you play in what they call immersive mode, where it means you don't have map markers, you don't have an arrow telling you where to go. Instead, you got to talk to NPCs and they give you directions. And then you got to look at your map and be like, they said it was south of here, so I'm going to place a pin down there and go in that direction and hope I see a landmark. You know, there's there like in Valhalla has real minimalist UI. All it has is that compass at the top, which, you know, Elden Ring also has. It's just like,
Red Dead Redemption also like goes it's scary. I don't know if you played Red Dead Redemption 2. It's scary how like built in the game it wants or it enables someone who doesn't want the map turned on.
yeah,
It like there's heavy location signifiers, and for 99% of people they will not pay attention to those location signifiers and they will go for the minimap. They will
yeah,
prefer the minimap. And Red Dead Redemption 2 has just as much, I would argue, probably has just as much effort as Elden Ring when it comes to the detail put into the world
yeah,
and the environment. And the other thing I was going to say in terms of like UI and UX is like, it goes back to like, oh, they think FromSoft is an unwavering bastion.
yeah,
This is the first FromSoft game that actively has a real map. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, imagine playing Elden Ring without a map, and that would have been so inexcusable.
That
That would have been
absolutely.
literally an impossible game to play. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
No, 100%. I just I think there is a thing of it's okay when FromSoft does it. And
Yeah.
sometimes it does come down to they do it good, but if I think the true innovation from FromSoft's like design that transfers to an open world game is your currency and your XP are the same resource.
Yeah.
If you could not sell like the weapons you don't want to use for XP, then there would be riots in the street. People would be saying that there's so many useless loot drops, like I see people talk about for other open world games. But
Yeah.
if I get a weapon I can't or don't want to use, I can sell that, and now I'm 10% closer to a level. And you know what? That
Yeah. Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
hunting dungeons real worthwhile.
I don't sell my stuff. I don't ever
You
sell.
don't?
I hoard like a monster.
I do that, and then I take a look and be like, you know what? I'm real close to a level, or I'm real close to that upgrade price from not Andre.
Yeah. From Stony Andre.
You know what? I
Yeah.
like that guy. I think he's my favorite Smith.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, we can talk more about not Bloodborne. We can talk more about Elden Ring in future iterations because I'm sure I'll still be playing it come 2 weeks from now.
I kind of want to get it over with now and then like do New Game Plus or something as like a breather. Anyways, I guess we should talk about dinosaurs at some point, right?
Dinosaurs. Yeah, that's the topic of the week. The Variety Minute, the Retbrospective.
Murph, I am so stupid. I am very stupid.
Uh
I
huh.
didn't even think about adding Mario to the list of dinosaur games.
Mario World
Yeah, Yoshi. Yoshi's like a big one, right?
is so Yoshi started as a dinosaur, but I think they transferred him more over into like a dragon category in later things, right?
Okay. Yeah, all right. We should delineate what a thing is. There's a distinction between mutant reptiles, like in Rampage. When you
Mm-hmm.
become Lizzie, it is because Soda has turned you into a reptile Godzilla. And then
Yes.
there's dragons, like in Dark Souls. And then there's actual dinosaurs from the whatever lithic era,
Mm-hmm.
the Jurassic era. I don't actually know my eras, but that being said, the real dinosaurs. I think Yoshi technically is a dinosaur, but that being said, he can still breathe fire
Uh
like a
huh.
dragon.
Maybe that's just what dinosaurs did, and we don't have the evidence.
Yeah, I think that's a good move, is to, instead of do the weird thing where they add feathers to a dinosaur, this is the scientifically accurate dinosaur.
Yeah.
What if we just made the dinosaurs cooler?
Yeah. No. No. I'm very pro dinosaurs in video games. Dinosaurs are a way of doing aliens or demons with, but not. You know what I'm saying?
I think it allows you to not fall into pitfalls of whatever you're doing. Like if it was aliens or demons, those are very specific things. Whereas like dinosaurs, I don't like. Jurassic Park is your primary text
Yeah.
for like a modern sci-fi dinosaur thing. So there's still a lot of untreaded ground.
Yeah, and I think dinosaurs you can just get away with them being evil because
Yeah.
PETA's not going to get mad, or maybe they have, I don't know. But there's like Capcom just revealed that new game Exoprimal, where it's about
Yeah.
suiting up in mech suits to mow down hordes of dinosaurs.
They're treated like bugs, or they're
Yeah.
treated like a Starship Trooper,
Yeah. No,
aliens.
no, there's like absolutely no humanity's not the right word, but the dinosaurs are always violent, always hungry. If that game was about
Yeah.
like a black hole opening and a bunch of lions poured out, people would be having a problem with like suiting up in mechs and fighting them with swords.
Yeah. I agree with that. Because, like, yeah, dinosaurs are literally just animals. So, like,
Yeah, but they're not
PETA should be upset by it, but
yeah,
who
but they're not
cares?
treated as just animals. And I think that's the reptilian angle because
Yeah.
you can get away with a lot of reptilian enemies in games.
Yeah. There's connotations and stuff to that. Yeah, I agree. I was gonna ask you, in terms of like when you were a kid, and I wish someone would define what kind of kids each kid is,
Mm-hmm.
but
You
like
wish there
there
was an
was
alignment
dinosaur
chart.
kids I knew. I knew kids who like were experts in dinosaurs.
I
You know?
I could probably name a few dinosaurs. If you put a Parasaurolophus in front of me, I'd probably identify it. But I'm not like I guess, not a religious follower of the Saurians. I was always more into, like, the paranormal and cryptids, which dinosaurs sometimes traipse into.
Is Loch Ness a dinosaur?
That's up for interpretation. It could. Most people say a plesiosaur,
Okay. All
but it's
right.
also been cited walking on land. So who's to say?
That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
The
Okay.
true best
All right.
dinosaur cryptid is Mokele Mkimbe, or however that's pronounced. I've only seen it written. I may have just said a slur, but it's the it's the
Uh-oh.
it's the loose T Rex in Africa.
Oh, that sounds cool. See, that sounds so cool though.
Yeah.
My favorite cryptid is like the Jersey Devil because
Mm.
it sounds so ridiculous, but it looks so cool. And then it looks animal, and if it looks animal enough to where I'm like, oh, someone totally saw an animal run by and they just saw one thing and then they just like their brain filled in the spaces.
Yeah.
I think those are fine for cryptids. I think those are cool.
Yeah. Uh Unfortunately, this is not the topic isn't cryptid games.
The one that always comes to my mind in terms of dinosaur games is actually the Jurassic Park games,
Mhm.
the ones where it's like a closed booth in the arcade. Did you ever play those?
My dad used to be on a bowling team, and when he went in, I would go into the bowling arcade, but he never gave me any money, so I just watched like the demos. And there was a
That sounds
Jurassic
terrible.
there it was a Jurassic Park rail, like a light gun shooter where you're like
Yes.
it had like curtains and
Yes, that's what I'm
you
talking
were in
about.
a
Yeah.
Jeep. Yeah, no, I could close my eyes and replay that. The issue with that watching that one is you would just be sitting inside that Jeep, and then when someone came in, it would be real awkward. Like someone that wanted to play, it'd be real awkward,
Yeah.
being like, "Oh, I'm just here to watch the thing."
One of my favorite things about the arcade experience is how like authentic it would try to like build the experience around, like make a Jeep. So now you're inside a Jeep.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then that helps immerse you so much. The only thing comparable is when they make peripherals for your controllers, like a guitar for your Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
Like that's the only way you can like sort of help imagine, yourself
The
into
true
the game as
immersive
well.
Jurassic Park experience. That franchise known for people mowing down dinosaurs with automatic weapons.
Beautiful. The games are hard though. I remember whenever I would play them, like light gun games in general would be like you would die in the first 10 minutes. But like
Well,
Jurassic Park, I would like put in $1 and I would die within the first like 3 minutes.
that's how it gets your
It would be
money,
bad.
man. You spare no expense. What about Turok? Were you a Turok kid?
I wrote down Turok. Turok is probably like among all of these, even Dino Crisis, Turok is probably the biggest dinosaur franchise, right?
So,
Is
well,
it?
here's the thing. I've only played the multiplayer in the first level of Turok. Is it actually set in the past, or is it a planet with dinosaurs?
I think it's a planet with dinosaurs. I don't know. I'm not a Turok lore expert.
No. Is it like Star Fox Adventures?
It is not like Star Fox Adventures.
Okay.
It is not a furry game. No.
Okay. Well, there's like Dinosaur Planet there.
No, yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. You're asking if these are technically aliens.
Yeah.
That's what you're wondering.
I'm wondering that,
right?
yeah.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Thankfully, Dino Crisis is like officially dinosaurs.
Yeah, it is fully dinosaurs.
It is 100% dinosaur. I don't know anything about Ark. Do you know what Ark is?
It's that game Vin Diesel's in the sequel of.
Really?
You don't remember that? At like the Game Awards, was it?
I remember he was in something. I don't remember.
I think it was the
Ark.
2020 Game Awards. There was like this long ass trailer with CGI caveman Vin Diesel. And then at the very end, it was revealed to be Ark. And the entire time, I thought it was a Turok reboot with Vin Diesel as Turok.
That'd be sick.
But no.
Yeah.
My cousin plays Ark.
Oh.
Eh,
What is it? I literally don't know what it is.
it's a survival game. It's like Rust.
Okay. Okay.
And there are dinosaurs, but there are also dragons and some sort of weird giant like crustacean thing. I don't know. Anytime I see her playing it, she's just making like stables for her mini dragons.
Oh, see, that's so cool. That's the thing I was gonna say. Like, I think that is the future of dinosaurs. Is park builders and animal keeping,
Well,
and they've done that with Jurassic Park as well.
well, the true best dinosaur game is Zoo Tycoon 2.
Does Viva Pinata have dinosaurs?
Don't know, didn't know it on Xbox.
Damn.
I could not tell you. I would not be surprised.
Anyways, tell me about Zoo Tycoon 2.
Zoo Tycoon 2, their very last expansion was extinct animals. And it wasn't just dinosaurs, it was also like giant sloths.
They
And
had dodos, right?
yeah, there were dodos. Dodos were one of the mascots. And dodos could get a horrible disease that turned them pink.
That's so funny.
The real thing that expansion allowed is now there are a whole lot of Zoo Tycoon 2 horror machinimas about being hunted by dinosaurs. I'm going into a real
That's
niche corner of the internet with this one. I watched so many Zoo Tycoon 2 horror machinimas.
Murph, I'm gonna be real. I think people tuned out like 20 minutes into the Elden Ring thing. I think this is just like this is gonna be a fuck it podcast.
We're speaking into the void, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the only other
Continue.
the only other dinosaur game I can think of is Peter Jackson's King Kong for the PS2.
There you go. Well,
Did you
okay,
play that?
That's the thing I wanted to ask you because you're like a big fan of that, right?
A big fan of that one. Yes, I guess. Yes, I like it more than the movie.
Okay. Well, the thing is like I don't know if you know this. I played parts of the 360 one. And I was like, that was back when the 360 just came out. And that was like one of the fucking games to be like, whoa, look at the graphics. So like I enjoyed the 360 game. Are those the same games?
I believe so. Here's the thing. How has everyone played Peter Jackson's King Kong, the video game? It was like crazy to me in high school. I'd be like, oh, one of the games I had on the PS2 was King Kong. And 5 people would turn their heads. People I'd never spoken to. And be like, oh, I love that game.
Man, I don't know what it is. I think it just came out at the right time.
Maybe.
For a lot of people. Again, for 360, the 360's first year was really bad. It was when like Dead Rising hit. That was like, okay, finally 360 has games I care about. But like before that, it was like Call of Duty 2 and fucking King Kong.
Yeah.
Like that was like the first
That's your
year
killer
of,
app.
Xbox 360. Yeah, those were your fucking killer apps. So like, and Cameo, Elements of Power. Sorry, I almost fucked up on that one.
Cameo, Elements of... I have no idea what that is. Is that like the
That
Skittles
is a
game?
rare title. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
It's done.
Fair enough. Yeah,
I think dinosaurs are in that.
there are dinosaurs. Tomb Raider has a dinosaur at the start. It opens with a dinosaur, and then you downgrade to shooting gorillas.
Have you done a Tomb Raider retrospective?
I've only played partway through the first Tomb Raider 2016, and Rise of the Tomb Raider. It's on the list. It may be the one after Yakuza. I own all of them.
I get the feeling Tomb Raider is like a juicy franchise explorer.
That's what
I mean?
that's what I feel. I'm very curious. And now that I'm more adept to PS1 era gameplay with going through Resident Evil, I think I'll splash into early Tomb Raiders just fine.
So let me ask you, and this will be a good transition to our actual title. Before Resident Evil's retrospective, you were anti PS1?
I was more, how do I want to phrase this? I thought they were harder than they actually were.
I got you.
Because, I would hear like, oh, Resident Evil 1 hasn't aged well, like the gameplay is so janky. And playing it, I was like, it's not that it's old. It's not that it's like the devs didn't know what they were doing. It's just a style of gameplay we don't get anymore. And I think that's what bounces people off.
Yeah, no, 100% there. And then like in terms of graphics, I think that like strict polygon look, I think that's very like, I like it.
No,
I actually enjoy the aesthetics.
I like the aesthetic of PS1 games. Because it's just much more stylized. I'm not big on like super realistic graphics. unless it's for like environments, but the people I could give or take. And I think the appeal of like PS1 and 64 era games is that all the characters look like action figures.
Yes. Yeah. And like they're exaggerated in movement with like the posing
Mm-hmm.
to make up for the fact that they can't move their mouths.
Yeah.
But like honestly, I the expressiveness allows for sort of an artistic freedom, whereas like nowadays we're very like slaven to or beholden to realism,
Yeah.
or at least semi-realism, to where it's like, okay, we can't have this sort of thing anymore. It's
Yeah.
sad.
When you make it so you can really tell a character's expression, which is hard to do. Like,
Yeah.
there's an example I was seeing passed around on Twitter a few weeks ago where it was like the God of War 2016? Yes, that was
Sure.
2016. Where it's like you can see like Kratos' expression change, and it's like so subtly done, but it's like man, that like the animation on that is incredible. But I think when it comes down to what I would prefer, I like the more stylized approach.
Yeah.
It like anything, realism is a tool.
I agree. And you know what? We with this concept, we can go into our game of the week. Okay, everybody. Our game of the week is Dino Crisis. It
Dino
is a
Crisis.
1999. What?
Just Dino Crisis.
There you go. A 1999 title for the PlayStation, computer, and Dreamcast. We played it on the PlayStation. I kind of wanted to play it on the computer, but I didn't. Shinji Mikami and his team at Capcom wanted to take their success in founding Resident Evil as a franchise and as a survival horror genre staple and take that genre into a different direction. Instead of the heightened fantasy elements of Resident Evil, he wanted a more grounded action sci-fi experience. With this, he decided to make the game about dinosaurs instead of zombies. In terms of design branding, the direction of the game was under panic horror rather than Resident Evil's survival horror. And the dinosaurs in the game's tone reflect this. Dinosaurs are often jump scares. They're less plentiful, they're more aggressive and persistent. They're able to track you with your blood spills, for instance. There would be prototypical QuickTime events during cutscenes when the dinosaur would jump out. Other notable differences in the game include a heavier focus on puzzle design and real time environments. Resident Evil had pre rendered backgrounds, but they instead chose to have these environments rendered, and they have their own pros and cons, which we will probably discuss.
Mm.
The story of the game is that in the distant future of 2009, a special operations team sends an agent named Tom undercover to a top secret island facility. There, he discovers a scientist prodigy named Dr. Kirk, who had been believed to have been dead for 3 years. He's still alive, still researching some top secret shit. The special ops team sends Gail, Rick, Cooper, and you, the player, Regina, to go to the island and acquire Kirk. That is the only objective, other than to get off the island alive. The only complication is there's dinosaurs there. And that's all I'm going to say. Murph, what did you think of Dino Crisis?
I think I prefer Resident Evil. um,
That's a good. I think that's it. That's a
there we
wrap.
go, end the podcast. You know, I think it started strong, but even at like how long did I play this? 4 or 5 hours. I think it's too long, or I think the pacing is the main problem. I'll phrase it like that. I think we both agree the pacing is the problem.
I think this game could be rebalanced. This game should be harder.
Hmm. You know,
That was my thought.
yeah, because at the start I was like, oh god, they made the hunters from like late game Resident Evil the main enemies. This game is gonna suck. But actually, you know what? Once you've played through all the Resident Evil games and you've learned how to dodge enemies with tank controls, that skill
Yes.
never leaves you. I barely got hit by any enemies. I barely
They
used any healing.
they start aggro and start attacking you way too late.
Yeah.
I killed like 3 dinosaurs. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah. No, no.
Like I just ran.
I get that. I think those late game uh uh, demon raptors. I don't even know what those are. That's not a
When
real.
they changed the enemy type, it got worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like those should have been there way earlier, and there should have been more variety.
And the main
There's like 4 types of dinosaurs in this
and
game.
they're all raptors.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah. Well, there's technically there's pterodactyls, but like
oh,
theirs are in 2 screens.
yeah. I think the lack of the variety in both the environments and the combat is what harms this. Like you start off in a secret lab and you end in a secret lab. There's no it's all gray metal hallways. I thought for sure at some point we were going to enter like maybe not like the jungle adjacent, but maybe like a terrarium or something, a greenhouse. And
And you know something to contrast with Resident Evil, for instance, but before people complain, and I'm not even going to talk about the pre-rendered stuff yet, but like what Resident Evil would do is it would have like a statue, and it would be such an obvious landmark to where you would know exactly
mm,
what room this was. Oh, this is the room with the fucking dude jacking off statue.
yeah,
I'll remember that. And then the diary 5 rooms later will be like, oh, you need the gem of power for
it,
the dude jacking off statue.
yeah.
And then it all makes sense. And instead, the puzzles in Dino Crisis, there's no dude jacking off statue. It's all fucking metal rooms. And then
And
it's like, you gotta go to this computer in hallway B. And in hallway B, there's three.
You got to
there's
put
3
in
keys you need to get.
you got to put in the code that you got from the memo in cafeteria C.
You need to write shit
You
down.
absolutely need to write shit down. This is Jason Schreier would love this game because you got to keep a notepad by your side and write down everything.
Oh my god, it got really bad near the end. You know what? I don't know. I wish I played this again, or at least I caught up on the thing because there's okay. I'll say this: there's multiple branching
Mm-hmm.
pathways that you could do the game. They don't often affect the story. Only the ending one affects the story. But that being said, like gameplay wise, you could choose either Gale options, which are usually to stick to the mission and are combat oriented, or Rick's missions, which are usually have to do with like saving somebody and then or figuring out puzzles.
Yeah,
And every single time I would choose Rick because narratively, Rick seems like the better guy.
I like Rick. I like Rick. Rick is You can't see what I'm doing, but I'm making a gesture with my wrist. Like
I'm doing the gesture as well. Rick is a good guy.
Rick could be played by Lil Nas X, is what I'm saying.
What does that mean? I don't know. No, but like I think he's a very positive character. I liked Regina and I liked Rick.
Yeah.
I think Gale is good enough to contrast, but I don't like Gale obviously. But that being said, like I don't know if I prefer those characters more than a Resident Evil character, but there's an appeal to this kind of story that I don't mind.
Yeah.
Um,
I like that all the characters are
Pacing-
competent.
yes, I like that. I think when it goes to pacing, what you said, narratively it becomes a problem because spoiler alert for Dino Crisis, you find Dr. Kirk like what halfway through or something.
It's like at hour 3 and then you lose him.
Yes, yeah, and then it becomes, oh, you have to get out of off the island. Don't worry about Dr. Kirk. He'll come back later, scripted.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well then, fuck, man. And that's such a like a lame way to peter out. And there's an element of it I appreciate. I appreciate that this team, like this narrative team or whatever, like these guys, they don't have to save the world. They don't have to save the island. They don't care about that.
Yeah, there's not
they
a
only have to care
worry about the
mission.
dinosaurs breaking out.
Yes, there's none of that. Now, that being said, those would give stakes. That would justify the length it has. Instead of having a drawn out length of me escaping. Dude, just let me escape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You get to the boat dock and it's like, "Oh, we can't leave. There's a vortex blocking the hallway." this specific hallway. You haven't encountered a vortex anywhere else.
Oh my god. Oh, and then like narratively it gets bad near the end when everyone starts talking in techno babble
Mm-hmm.
and then they talk to you like you have to do this techno babble. You're going to have to figure out stabilizers and
Regina
initializers.
doesn't
Uh,
have the technical know-how.
I don't, so I agree with Gail.
You know what? You know what? In Gale's defense, that stabilizer construction system seems
Yeah.
real sketch. Why does it work like that?
Yeah, in Gail's defense, I think I probably should have chosen his options more. The puzzles in this game were probably too esoteric. Again, it goes to the location thing where you can't identify things as well. I don't know if it's necessarily a pre-rendered problem
Mm,
versus
no.
a
When the camera moves to follow you in some hallways, that blew my
yeah,
mind. Resident Evil didn't do that till the Dreamcast.
I I think that's so I think it's really cool and it really helps for like I'll say the thing that's good about the dinosaurs is I think they work best when they're scripted.
Yeah,
I think they work best when they pop out as a jump scare.
yeah.
And then it's like and then the camera's following you as you're running down a hallway or you're running down like a rail thing. That shit's cool.
Yeah, they work for chase sequences.
Yes, and then they don't work for the general zombie hallway
Yeah.
because
They don't work when I need to get to this room and there's 4 dinosaurs blocking my path.
yes, yeah. 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 And then like the game's not even as fun. I think the game has a much more
No.
limited gun selection. I will say I enjoy the targeting more. This
Hmm.
game's better about actual gunplay.
You can walk and aim at the same time.
Yes, stuff like that, but like those are small improvements that Resident Evil as a series probably would have done anyways. Like I like this I like all 3 Resident Evil PS1 titles more than this,
I
I
I
would
would
say.
agree with that. Yeah, I would pretty strongly agree with that. If I put this into my like Resident Evil ranking, I think it would probably go like low C tier. Well,
Think it's inspired. Here's
yeah.
the thing is I do think this is worthy of a franchise. And like Dino Crisis 2 will address some of our complaints and like it's more action oriented, so it worries way less about like the bullshit. But
Okay.
like that being said, like this is not a 10 out of 10 title.
The idea of like panic horror, like it's less about survival, it's more about because the thing that works in Resident Evil PS1 games is you had the safe room, and that's the room where
Yeah.
you could save. It's where you could take stock of your inventory with the item box, and then you're like, okay, I need to go here, here, and here. It's like a base camp. You're prepping for where you need to go. Dino Crisis doesn't really have that because it doesn't have the item box. All key items don't take up a slot, which is nice, but then you're just coming across items that you can't pick up. And really, I never came back to any of those things because I was like, well, 3 rooms ahead, there's probably going to be another first aid kit that I'm not going to use. Like, the inventory I had at the start of the game is basically the inventory I ended the game with.
And then there's like so much forgiveness. There's continues. You can continue in this
Yeah.
game. There's resuscitators. I didn't even realize I was like, oh, there's like just another way for me to not die.
Yeah.
Like it boggles my mind because the game's not built for that. I would say thinking and trying to contrast it with Resident Evil. You know what I think Resident Evil did that is so obvious for Dino Crisis? I'm shocked they didn't do it for this, which was a Predator. Like
Mm.
they didn't have like a Mr. X or a Nemesis. They have a T-Rex here, but the T-Rex is so obviously scripted and big.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas like, and it's like you can very clearly recognize the rooms at which the enemy mobs can or can't go into, and they're just general mobs, so there's no like sort of tension.
Yeah.
Whereas if there was like there's the badass dinosaur that can go into the secret rooms that the other ones can't. That would add tension to it. It's all panic, no survival.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like the dinosaurs do have like all these like things they can do, like they'll cause you to start bleeding, which makes it easier to track you, or they can knock your gun out of your hand with a tail whip. But it's
Like that.
but
That's cool.
but it's like, with all those things stacked up onto it, you're never going to want to engage with them like
Yes.
in that sort of circumstance. It's like why would you? You can I like the laser grids. Like, I
Yeah.
think that the game should have been built more around that, like setting up barriers that the dinosaurs can't go through, and you have to like sort of you're making your own sort of maze of safety.
Building it around that would be really cool, to where like you can dictate the terms of how they engage with you after you've cleared the hallway once, but
Yeah.
then there's still issues for you to pass, because then it's like, oh, now I gotta turn off the laser grid, oh no.
Yeah, and
you
like,
know
the dinosaurs can chase you through doors, so I'm not sure how they have the clearance to go through these key card doors.
they're very smart,
They
Murph.
are. Um, but I think if you had like a mechanic where you could talk to Rick, who's the security guy, and be like, okay, I need you to open these doors. And maybe there's like, I don't know, an issue with the power system, so he can only open so many doors. And you need to decide
Yeah.
what sort of path you want to take. It's weird when the game tells you where to go, and then sometimes it just won't. Was that weird for you?
Yes, 100%. Whenever it pulls up the map and then it gave me a red spot, I was like, "Great, you're doing a good job, game." But then what the game will do sometimes is it will say what you need to do, but it's only a line of dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
and the line of dialogue is layered in technobabble, and
Yeah.
then you're like, "Oh no, what?"
There are some.
And then I have to replay the thing so I understood what was said.
Yeah, going back to the puzzles, there are some. I think these are some of the hardest puzzles in the PS1 like era. If we're putting them alongside the Resident Evil games, like, God damn it, so many doors.
This is like Puzzle Crisis, to be honest.
Yeah,
And the dinosaurs are like the subtitle.
yeah. Do you like not quite Wordle?
Yeah.
There's so many. There are doors that you need two keys for. You need a disc and you need a drive, and then you've got to solve a eliminate the letters to find the word puzzle. Except partway through, they change it to God. I didn't even read that whole document. I just started. A full disclosure. I leaned on a guide.
Okay, I can tell you what they end up doing. Okay. Initially they do that, and then when they add numbers, then it's like A equals 1, right?
Okay.
And then they do it like, oh, sometimes the numbers mean the column is the one you ignore. So you ignore entire columns, and then there's times where it's like you ignore entire blocks or whatever.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, I use the guide too, but I use the guide pretty much at the very end when I had to assemble the thing for
Yeah,
Rick.
so the
'Cause
problem.
at that point I was like, I have no idea where I'm going.
Yeah, the problem with that, like, concept is you can't reference back to those rules. It's written down in one memo in a room, like, at the midpoint.
Yes.
And so if you forget
Yeah.
what those rules are, then you're not going to be able to solve the puzzles.
Oh man.
There's a part where you have to scan fingerprints.
I like that. Okay. I like the first time you do it. I don't like it after that.
Yeah. You've got to scan fingerprints to find someone with clearance. And the first time you do that, I will admit there are like clues as to which dead body it is. But at the same time, I could see someone just running around for hours trying to find the right
Yes.
body to scan.
Did you do the main clue?
Which was the main clue? That
The main clue for the first time is
that it was whoever
basically-
immediately exited the elevator.
No, it's when you go into that room and you find out there's a scientist, a specific one, right?
Yeah.
You get the beeper. You have to call the guy and his beeper rings.
Oh no.
And then the beeper rings on the corpse.
No, I didn't know you could do that.
Yes.
That's interesting.
So that one
Okay.
is like super signposted if you look around the room.
Okay. Okay, that's kind of neat. What about the puzzle? Yeah, you would have seen this because you did all of Rick's methods, where you have to listen to the beeps a key code makes and
Oh my
then
god.
replicate it. So it's you.
Oh my god.
You have to put in this key code, but you don't know what the code is, so you listen to a recording of a conversation of two scientists who are like keying it in, and you hear like beep boop boop beep boop, and you have to identify which keys make those sounds and put them in.
The thing is the game is creative with the puzzles. I don't think this was the game for them,
No.
nor are they appropriate for the moment.
No. I like the crane puzzle.
I like the movement ones or the spatial ones.
Yeah.
I enjoy those, and I like the ones where it's like tile stuff. But that being said, is like it reminds me of puzzle. This is a Puzzle Crisis game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's so much time
This is like The
dedicated to
Witness.
deciding where to go and solving puzzles.
Yeah. And then the dinosaurs are kind of just flavor dressing. because they're not that difficult, really. I mean, it's annoying when you get hit because it's like, oh, I've got to apply the hemostat, because that doesn't the first aid kits don't take care of blood loss, and the hemostat doesn't heal you. Is there a way of knowing how much damage your character has taken?
I have no idea. Well, technically, I think there might be when you do the mix. I didn't really pay attention to the mix
Oh
screen
yeah,
a
the
lot because
mixing
there's
is
stuff on the
useless.
bottom.
I have no idea what the mix, other than making better anesthetic darts, but I don't know the difference between a first aid kit medium and a first aid kit medium plus plus.
Oh my god, I don't know about the plus pluses,
Because
but I think the large.
all of them say in their description heals you back to full health.
I think an L repairs repairs your bleeding. That being said, there's multipliers. Did you not mix the multipliers?
Yes, a few times.
But then, it would go to your problem of now you've got too much shit, and there's too much inventory, and then it's like, oh, none of this all of it's useless.
Yeah, I really don't get like the mixing system. If it was, I don't know, you could use it to, I guess you can use it to make those anesthetic darts, but those darts are also pretty easy to come by.
And I use the darts more than the shotgun or whatever. Like, if there was, like, a room with, like, a problematic amount of dinosaurs, I would put them to sleep and really hope I didn't have to go in that room again.
Yeah, no, that's what I did too.
Yep. Let's talk about things I liked about the game. I tried to think about it. I like Regina. I don't think she's better than Jill. I compare this game to Resident Evil 3. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I'd get that.
I think Resident Evil 3 is what I would want out of this game.
Mm-hmm. You'd want it to be more chaos.
Yeah, more chaos. And like, when I was reading the Wikipedia thing regarding like the heightened fantasy of Resident Evil, this game is not grounded.
No.
You know what I mean?
No, not at all. The dinosaurs come in through a time portal distortion caused by a new form of energy. But only the carnivores. Only the carnivores.
Oh, yeah, of course. Okay, when you talk about the ruins or whatever, that would be the cool thing, because like in the story, yeah, it basically is like it switches whatever the space is from here modern day to the prehistoric times, right? And that would be cool to be able to walk into a part of the lab that was a fucking
like a prehistoric
forest.
Jungle. That would be cool.
Yes,
and that would be real mysterious. Like you walk through a door and suddenly you're in like a completely different environment.
Yes, I think they do that in the later games, to be fair.
Okay.
But they didn't do it here, so they fucked up.
Yeah, no. I think, it's just feels just a bit more limp than it probably should be. Oh, what's that sound?
What?
Brogan, you know what that sound means? It's time for voice actor trivia with Murph.
Oh, there we go.
I'm very fascinated by 90s games voice casts because there's two paths. Either the voice actor vanishes into obscurity or you look them up and they're now like running a corporation.
Which one's this one?
So we'll start with the voice of Rick, who is probably the most famous/infamous person here, Richard Yearwood.
Okay.
I immediately clued in to who I recognize his voice from. He was the voice of Donkey Kong on the TV show.
Oh, that makes sense. Oh, that's classic.
But not the singing voice.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But now he is currently a big-time producer for the Home and Garden Network. If you're like my mother and love the show Love It or List It, he created that.
There you go. He's moving on up. To be honest, that's a step up.
Yeah. The other two, you got Gale's voice actor. He didn't really do much else. He's a stage actor mainly. You may recognize him as the voice of Jerry from Totally Spies.
I don't.
Well, I do. No, it's a completely different voice. And then lastly, Regina does not look like she's done a whole lot. She's trying to break into serious film directing in Toronto. She's directed a lot of Canadian shows. But on the voice acting front, she was on one of my favorite Disney XD shows, Yin Yang Yo, where she was the voice of Yin. Do you remember that show?
No.
No, you don't. In a world of chaos and disarray, brother and sister save the day.
No.
Well then.
No, God, no. This is scarier than the dinosaurs. What the fuck?
No.
We gotta burn this. I'm surprised there's no flamethrower in this game. There's like no weapons in this game.
You know what? That's true. I was very surprised at no point Gale didn't give you like his machine gun.
That's what, literally, it's like a pistol with, they have a lot of upgrades to be fair.
Yeah.
And the upgrades like are kind of like whatever, man. It's like pistol, shotgun, and grenade launcher. I don't know if there's more, but it doesn't feel like
I didn't find any others, and the guide I was looking at didn't mention any others. It's those three, and you can upgrade them, and your shotgun can shoot darts.
Yeah, that's very lacking. It's limp like that. And to be fair to Shinji Mikami, he was like producing like 6 Resident Evil titles at the time of making this.
Yeah.
So like, and like, I like Resident Evil 3, Code Veronica, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I can't blame him. And this is definitely like, for me, this is a good adventure out of the genre. But like,
it's an interesting little artifact, but I don't think it deserves like the, I don't know, cult classic status that I know it has.
Yeah.
Oh, Stephanie Morgenstern, the voice of Magina, was also the 5th best Sailor Scout. She was Sailor Venus.
There we go. The 5th best. You have a ranking of them off the top?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll save that. We'll bookmark that for another podcast.
We are scrounging for things to say about Dino Crisis. I'm very surprised Gale did not have a Wesker twist.
I was thinking this. I was comparing it to the first Resident Evil a lot, and part of me liked the cinematicness. I like the voice acting in this. Like I do. I liked their performances generally speaking, and then Gale seems sinister, but he's just like on top of it. Respect to Gale, he's just a guy that does the mission.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think in one of the endings, if you choose to let him die, spoilers, then he like reveals to you the mission was like a front, and that they wanted to recruit Dr. Kirk rather than arrest him.
Oh, I see. This all makes sense.
I did watch the different cinematics for the endings. I guess I chose like the easiest one to do, which is the one where you just leave.
Yeah.
But in one of them, you get on that hover boat. Did you get the boat or the helicopter?
I did the helicopter and I saved Kirk.
Okay. If you get on the boat, rescuing... Because I guess you can choose... Say you're going to rescue...
You can find Kirk no matter what you say.
Yeah.
I chose Rick. Rick beat up Gale, and then I still found Kirk.
Okay. But there's like, if you leave by the boat in one of the endings, the T-Rex hops in the water and swims after you, like at motorboat speed, and you have to get on the hoverboat and shoot rockets at it.
That is a persistent T-Rex, I will say.
That dude is so hungry and so grenade-proof.
I respect it. I respect the grind.
I want the game from the T-Rex's perspective.
I wish that was an alternative game mode.
You know, because
where you could just attack.
But
seriously, that'd be cool.
There's one part where you're like in the basement and the elevator opens up and the T-Rex comes out.
Yeah.
It's like, to be fair, there was a dude on the elevator, but he still hit the button with the T-Rex on it.
Yeah. I just imagine these dinosaurs are super intelligent and can operate machinery.
They can follow you through sliding doors.
There you go. Yeah. I like what what did you think of the pop-up moments, the proto QuickTime events?
I think that's the only time they really worked as a threat. Like you said, it's like we said at the start. Anytime the dinosaurs are like chasing you, that's when they work as an enemy, because they make these horrible sounds as they go after you, and you can hear their thundering footsteps. Some of them are a bit silly, like the one that jumps out of like the electrical vents.
Yep. I noticed sometimes that I don't know how their scripting works. I was kind of fascinated by that. Sometimes I would walk into a room or whatever, and like the thing would trigger, and then if I had to restart or something, the thing wouldn't trigger. I was so curious as to their AI. I think that was cool, but that being said, it didn't make for an interesting game as I was playing it.
Yeah, I know that Shinji Mikami really wanted the dinosaurs to be smart and like remember things the player did and adapt. Like if you used your gun on them, then they would try to rush you down quicker. But the PS1 just couldn't handle that.
Yeah. I think they needed to be more focused in regards to the enemies or something, or have a more enemy variety or something.
I think you could have done a shorter narrative with more branching paths.
Yeah. Yeah, and like okay, so the branching path thing reminds me of how Resident Evil 3 does it.
Mm.
And Resident Evil 3 was just better about it. I don't know, man. Just
I guess, well, Resident Evil 3 would have branching options where it's like, do you want to fight this enemy or run away? And usually running away was the best bet. It just sort of,
yeah.
whereas this, it's like you're getting completely different gameplay. And it's,
Yes, yeah, you're actively choosing to do the complicated puzzle or engage in more boring fights.
yeah. And like, I kind of switched. I did Gale's method once. It was like the second choice you have to make.
Sure.
Where it's like hack Dr. Kirk's computer or just run and grab the thing.
Yeah.
And I chose to just run and grab the thing, and you know what? There was only like 5 dinosaurs on the way.
That makes sense.
And then for the very last choice, I chose Rick's method, which was because at that point I was just like, this seems like this would be quicker if I just like look at the codes.
I wish I chose Gale's thing for the for assembling the bullshit. Assembling the bullshit was too much for me, man. That broke me.
Yeah,
that made me dislike the game. I was gonna say this game was like a 6 or 7, and like playing the Rick thing at the end made me
adds like a whole half hour to the playtime, and it's just running back to places you've been in and using the disc on the machine. How many power sources does this factory have?
Oh my god, don't get me started.
There were, you know, it's weird. There was one part like early on when the very first time you have to fix a generator, there's like a machine for like charging a battery that never comes into play.
I noticed that. Yep.
I don't know. I feel like there were definitely like vast. I don't know. The game just doesn't feel finished in that regard. Like I kept walking up to machines and it's like, this is the machine that opens doors. And I was like, oh, that's gonna come into play.
Okay, I guess I'll be back here later. And that really only happens near the end, where it's like, okay, because like it's very clear once you go into the lab is like a completely separate.
It's a point of no return. You can't go back.
Yeah, just whew. So like they constructed that a little bit more carefully. But that being said, like everything else is
No, I don't. I think it, like I said, it's low C tier, and that's just mainly on the concept. I think it would work as a remake, but it looks like Capcom's going in a different direction.
I was gonna say this game would be a fucking sick like Resident Evil 2 remake style thing.
Yeah.
Like that engine, that like mode, Resident Evil 3 remake, those would be perfect for Dino Crisis.
Yeah, with the sparse number of enemies, like I would totally,
yes.
I would be on board with that. And then you could really get the more like Predator feel of the Raptors.
Yes, and they could have all that stuff we just complained about. And like it's not like Resident Evil 2 and 3 didn't have puzzles. 2 did have puzzles, but they're like Resident Evil is so much better about how it does puzzles. It's not even funny.
Yeah. Well, sometimes they can get a little point and click adventure, like all you need is the right item to use on a thing. Like I think
they streamlined it a bit too much by the end. But that being said, like I would just it feels more natural for me to solve that instead of go to a computer and then solve a Tetris equation.
Yeah. I think this game definitely is from the era where you had to write things down, even like to help you understand a puzzle better. It just I don't know. I'm curious to play the sequel, I guess.
Yeah, I think I will explore the sequel because the sequel looks like it does do a different direction. It wants more adrenaline. And I think that's what this game needs. This game needs adrenaline.
Yeah, for a panic horror, there's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of like this is the one game I think would be fine with just constant forward momentum.
Yes. Yeah. Or like, and the downtime doesn't have anything scenic to it.
Yeah.
A lot of downtime games will have like a breathable moment where you can enjoy the environment. There's no enjoying the environment here. That is the one problem I will say with the pre-rendered versus the real time, is like a lot of the real time stuff, it has to be more bare bones because of the assets, especially if you need to have dinosaurs in it.
Whereas
so then it's like
with pre-rendered, there's more texture, there's more character.
Yes, someone had to fucking make an image and carefully craft the personality in it. Yeah.
You know what? Actually, no, I take it back. I want the game from Rick's perspective. I want the perspective of the guy just sitting in the room tapping on a computer while everyone else does the important stuff.
Oh, that reminds me of that one fucking game. You know the
Five Nights at Freddy's?
I was talking about that PlayStation 2 game where like you were the phone operator and you're like guiding a woman through like a space attack. You know what I'm talking about?
No, what?
There's like a PlayStation 2 game where you use the microphone. And the microphone, obviously, it's not very good because
it's like Hey You Pikachu, but a horror.
Yes, it's Hey You Pikachu, but you're guiding a woman out of like a space resort.
It's Hey You Woman.
While there's like a monster thing. I don't remember the name of it. I really wish I like knew it off the top, but like that sounds like that.
Huh. Okay. Huh.
I'll include it in the description and then I'll message you later. But yeah, that would be fun, and that sounds okay if it worked. Probably doesn't.
Well, in terms of a space-time distortion bringing monsters into a science lab, is this better or worse than Half-Life 1?
Oh, Half-Life 1's clearly better than this.
No, that's... Half-Life 1 is oodles better than this. Half-Life 1 is exciting.
Yeah. And like, I think that's a really good way to say, like, there's a difference between dated. Half-Life 1 was dated, but like, there's still a very, like, the design is still solid. It's rock solid, baby. Whereas this one, it's like, well, there's some mistakes here, buddy.
Mm-hmm. And the enemies respawn. I forgot to bring that up when we were talking about combat. There's no reason to kill any of the raptors because they respawn.
Yeah, and it's so inconsistent. So it's just not pleasant. It's just not a pleasant experience for that.
No.
Whereas like you could plan for getting rid of the zombies.
Yeah, and that was
what I mean?
like the bullet economy in Resident Evil is great because you know how many. And this is the reason why I realized later I didn't click with RE2 remake that much. Is that like encountering a zombie was always like a question of economics. Like I know it takes about 3 bullets to knock over a zombie, maybe like 7 to kill it. So can I spare that many bullets, or is this a wide enough room that I can dodge around it?
It's a transaction every time. And in Resident Evil 2 remake, you were not sure that number was an X.
Yeah.
And that scared you.
Yes, I think that, and here it's sort of the same thing, where I guess there is the question of can you spare the bullets, but the answer is always you should run around it.
Yes, yeah. All right, Murph. Well, let me ask you, like, now that I think we've played a lot of exhausting games.
When are we going to play a good game on this podcast, Brogan?
Well, shut the fuck up. No. But we should downsize. I think we should go back to basics and play a nice, easy, simple game that's enjoyable.
Yeah.
Like World of Goo.
The best Wii game?
I don't know about
Don't at me.
I don't know, but that's a hot take that you'll defend.
The best WiiWare game?
I think that's fair. I think that's like I think World of Goo is like the ultimate WiiWare game.
Yeah. Well, tune in next time, Funyuns.